be the least original put-down of the last 40 years. Every time I look at him, her, it, I wonder, is a McDonald's somewhere missing an employee? In our fourth story in the countdown, it mutated into the presidential race today by a Republican about another Republican. The latest New York Times CBS poll showing a whopping 59% of voters believe that Sarah Palin is not prepared for the vice presidency, a sentiment seconded by none other than Ronald Reagan's chief of staff, Ken Duberstein, who says he's voting for Obama.
What most Americans, I think, realize is that you don't offer a job, let alone the vice presidency, to a person after one job interview. Even at McDonald's, you're interviewed 3 times before you're given a job.
Mr. Duberstein's skepticism echoed even by those who support John McCain, like former Secretary of State Lawrence Eagleburger, who in response to a question on NPR about whether Palin is prepared to take on the presidency if she needs to, said the following.
Of course not. I don't think at the moment she is prepared to take over the reins of the presidency. I can name for you any number of other vice presidents who were not particularly up to it either. So the question, I think, is, can she learn, and would she be tough enough under the circumstances if she were asked to become president? Heaven forbid that that ever takes place. Give her some time in the office, and I think the answer would be she will be adequate. I can't say that she would be a genius in the job.
24 hours later, Mr. Eagleburger went on Fixed News to publicly flagellate himself for those comments and offer apologies.
I made a serious mistake yesterday. I was quoted correctly. I wasn't thinking when I said it. In fact, I was discussing foreign policy, and this was in that context, and I was just plain stupid. I don't think she would be, from the minute she became vice president, she would be an expert in foreign affairs. That's clearly not the case, but she's going to have a mentor who is better at it than anybody else, and that's John McCain. So, and she's a quick learner, and I should have said that within a relatively short period of time, she would also be a foreign policy expert.
Yeah, Mr. Secretary, we are in fact
badly, and I'm sorry.
He didn't mention whether or not he'd seen Goldstein recently. An extraordinary mea culpa there, especially considering that even the man who chose her does not seem to be so sure about something about her.
Do you think that she is the face of the Republican Party going forward?
I think to a large degree as vice president or I think there's no doubt that because she has united our party in a large degree, and she's in many ways an inspirational figure.
Joined now by our own Jonathan Alter, senior editor for Newsweek magazine at Highland, Indiana tonight, obviously at an Obama event. Evening, John.
Hey, how are you, Keith?
What was that from John McCain, the or business? Do you have any idea?
Well, you know, he knows that he made a big mistake in picking Sarah Palin. He took a big gamble, and it didn't pay off. I have to say I was laughing when I was watching that Larry Eagleburger bite because, you know, it sounded like he was one of those guys who'd gone to a Maoist re-education camp, and then they put on a dunce cap and say, I was so stupid, you know. It was pathetic that after having told the truth, as Ken Duberstein also did, about Sarah Palin's lack of readiness for the vice presidency, he felt like he had to run for cover there. The Republican Party is in disarray at this point. They don't understand how they got into this pickle, but an awful lot of them are going to say that picking Sarah Palin certainly didn't help.
All right, so you choose Red China. I took Oceania, so you get credit for going with the accurate historical reference. But in that clip, though, the second part of it in there, he said Palin had united the Republican Party. Is that a new interpretation of what united means, or is it wishful thinking, or what is it?
Well, I think it's true that she has pulled together the base of the Republican Party. And they loved her. They loved her in St. Paul, and a lot of them love her now, and they're going to love her in 2012. The problem, Keith, is that's only about 25% of the American electorate. And so all the hopes that she was going to bring in Hillary Clinton supporters en masse are in tatters tonight. She is not doing it. The polls are showing that she's just not reaching out and getting support among the independents and the Democrats that you would need to give John McCain a boost. And there are an awful lot of people who think that her nomination reflects poorly on McCain's own judgment. He had, after all, said in July to your friend Sean Hannity that the first requirement for picking a vice president was somebody who could step in, quote, immediately, unquote, should something happen to him. And as Duberstein and Eagleberger pointed out, she doesn't meet that standard.
No, she could step in immediately after the McDonald's training course was completed. But back to that,
right.
that Times poll, it found that nearly a third said the vice presidential choice would be a major influence on their vote. Is this a great new truth for this election, or is it just germane to this election that the VP selection matters?
You know, in the past, it has not mattered, and there have been efforts to make it matter. Hubert Humphrey in 1968 tried to turn Richard Nixon's running mate Spiro Agnew into an issue. He made some ads. They did not work. There were some efforts by the Dukakis folks to make Dan Quayle an issue in 1988. They did not work. This time, the Obama people saw that Palin was enough of a shock to the system. Her lack of preparation was for the vice presidency, much less the presidency, was striking enough that they could actually score points. And they made an ad within the last week that they're putting in pretty heavy rotation that goes after McCain's judgment in picking Sarah Palin. She kind of winks at the end. It's a pretty good ad, and it doesn't make her look particularly good.
Jonathan Alter of Newsweek and MSNBC on the road at Highland, Indiana. Thanks, John. Have a good weekend.
Yeah. Thanks, Keith.